for a little while, Scott. At least let her get to the vocal.
Thank you for doing this. Honestly, I already love you.
Stop talking over it.
You must understand the touch of your hand makes my pulse react.
You know why I'm playing this?
I think I do.
Yeah. I don't even know if we talked about it. Did you watch the Tina documentary on HBO?
Yes. You and I, we were always in mixed company, so we haven't had a chance to have this conversation.
Right. And I was blown away by it.
Me too.
Yeah.
I think I told you, you and Kasha, actually, I said it was chapter 5 that blew me away, where she talks about
chapter
love.
5.
Chapter 5 is where I got teary-eyed.
Listen to that. Now this, there you go.
Yep.
Let it play for a little. Feel it. Okay, Scott, you can fade it. So, yeah, I was blown away. This is a thing. I as an adult, I know about Tina Turner. I knew about the abuse, but I didn't know the details about the abuse that, she went through. But and like in the 80s, that's when I discovered Tina Turner, 84-ish, right? When Private Dancer came out.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, who's this old woman? And she was only 39. I'm like, geez, look at this old lady.
Yeah.
But and
it's true, though. People
right.
Then.
I didn't know. And but her story, absolutely incredible. Like if you ever feel like giving up, put that show on. I mean, it's an amazing 2 hours.
It reminded me a lot of the Quincy Jones documentary.
Did you watch that?
Oh,
how good is that?
I mean, come on.
Scott, did you see the Quincy Jones one?
Yeah. I did not.
Oh, watch it. It's called Quincy. Very easy.
Yeah. Scott, believe me, it'll make you feel better.
Yeah. Why, Scott feel bad today?
Oh, I don't know. Just in general.
Okay.
Just makes you feel better. But Tina, I'm so, honestly, like I was saying before, it's like, I already love you after 40 years, but I couldn't love you more for just playing that right then, because it's like, it was just such a great documentary. And you know what? She just owned it, because unfortunately she never could get away from the whole abuse thing.
No,
like
that was incredible.
Everybody kept bringing up like, oh, what about Ike? What about Ike? And she's like, fine.
And here she is setting the world on fire with, Private Dancer. Yeah. She's selling out arenas.
Who cared about Ike? It's like
what about Ike?
Yeah. Why? She already left him behind. She left him in the dust.
Yeah. And he's like in jail, alcoholic, drugs.
Totally.
Go find him. He'll tell you about Ike.
But I love how she did find love. And the thing I think that it was that got me emotional, but really got me emotional was just like when she said it about, hey, it's okay to be proud. And when you're proud, it's wonderful. But then when's the right time to just, how do you slowly step off the stage?
And she did it.
And then her husband goes, this documentary and the Broadway show are Tina's way of...
It was her swan song.
It's her swan song. Yeah. And even now I get emotional about it. It's like, well, maybe she'll do an interview again sometime, but that's it.
Yeah.
She's done.
Scott, let me tell you why he's emotional. When we were growing up, he was a huge Tina Turner fan. That's when Private Dancer came out. Like George had Tina Turner and Cyndi Lauper on his bedroom walls and posters.
Nice. And anybody else with crazy hair that you had on your walls?
Anybody else? They both had crazy hair. That's a good point.
They did.
Did you have who else?
My dad was bald, so
Yeah. But yeah, he had those on his wall. So that should have been, our signs of that we knew you were a gay man.
Yep.
Yeah.
And remember how excited I was during Live Aid when Tina was up there with Mick?
Yeah.
I couldn't sit down.
I know.
Everybody was making fun of me.
You lost it. But yeah, no, that was it was a game, and it was a good time. It was a good watch. If you people have access to HBO, put it on, watch it, and get inspired. So, George, what are you doing today? This is a different show.
It is a different show. We have two guests today. We've got both are entrepreneurs. One is a budding entrepreneur. One is in the midst of her entrepreneurship.
Oh,
yeah, entrepreneurship.
I like how you did that.
So we've got Jing Lin, and we've got returning guest Rebekah Kondrat on today.
Also my online girlfriend.
Yes, your online girlfriend, Rebekah. So Jing Lin is of Coffee Confessionals. We're going to talk to her first. And
I love that name.
And then we're going to bring Rebekah Kondrat of Kondrat Retail and her new venture, Retail Plus, in a little bit further with the conversation. But we're going to start with Jing because our listeners don't know her yet.
I like how you said Bing. You ever use Bing instead of Google?
No. I love how they do the Bing car. It's like a broken down car. Like, it's Bing. Look, everybody, it's Bing. It's like everything else is sleek.
Yeah. All right. I'm sorry to take you off track. Go ahead.
No. So Jing has a very interesting background, and she is now the founder of Coffee Confessionals, and she's very close, almost breaking news, getting ready to sign her first lease.
What?
So we're going to talk to her now. Jing,
that's huge.
Yeah, Jing, welcome to the show.
Welcome, Jing.
Rebekah will bring you in a minute. Jing, welcome. Good to have you, first time guest.
Hi, guys. I'm so excited to be on the show. And yeah, I don't know about breaking news. I'm coming very close to a shop that I really like. So fingers crossed that this might be the one.
Well, good. Minor cross for you. I hope it works.
And Jing, just let everybody know when did this, talk to us a little bit about when the idea for Coffee Confessionals came up and a little bit behind it. Because when you first reached out to me, full transparency, Jing did call me a couple years ago about it. We had met through a mutual friend.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, in my mind, I was like, why the hell does she want to open a coffee shop?
Yeah. Did you even know her at that point?
No,
not at all.
I wasn't trying to talk her out of it, but I was like, all right, let me hear what she wants to say, because I'm like, a coffee shop? Who wants to open a coffee shop?
Whoa, really?
It's so funny you say that, George, because I get that even from the beginning. I get that so many times. People are like, why would you want to open up a coffee shop? Like, why a brick and mortar? So, so you can have free coffee, so you can sit there all day, so it has been, I feel like, sort of an uphill battle, just convincing everybody, including my family, that this is like what I want to do. But I guess you're asking is like kind of the origin story of how Coffee Confessionals came about. And it's actually, I was a film major in college, and I was always interested in sort of that story sharing aspect of film. And I was interested in documentaries, and I was interested in really like telling kind of an inspirational and moving story. So that's sort of my background. And I was studying in Boston. I grew up in New Jersey, and eventually made my way out to Los Angeles, because, you have to go to LA if you want to pursue, an entertainment career. And from LA, I started working at Universal, landed a great job at Universal in their promotions and marketing department. And, loved my first year there. It was crazy. It was busy. All of this, everything I dreamt of, it was glamorous. And then after a while, I just felt the creative itch again, because I wasn't necessarily, behind cameras doing the kind of work I wanted. I was more like behind a computer doing a desk job and, like making money for the studio and everything. But I was like, God, I just miss storytelling. I miss, the creativity. I miss being able to really highlight and spotlight people and their stories and things like that. So I kind of, in some ways, I felt like I lost my way. So I thought, what am I going to do? Well, maybe I'll just do a little side project. And I started a blog because I like writing and I like photography. And then I was like, well, what am I going to blog about? Who's going to, what's my subject matter? And then I was like, well, I also love coffee. And I feel like coffee is the perfect vehicle for people that want to share their stories, and for people to make a connection with a friend or a family member. And so that's really just how it came about. I was thinking, okay, coffee, what are you doing with coffee? You're telling your story. You're giving a confession. You're giving a confessional. So I was like, Coffee Confessionals. That's how it started, literally.
Well, and then you also had the booth. We got into it a little more, where there was the booth, right? You were going to do the booth, and people were getting, it was all about people telling their stories and how many of them want it public. And that's where I was just a little like, oh God, that's going to be a little scary. But it was when you think about how much people, Todd and I make fun of it all the time. How many people like share too much online. Oh yeah. So here I am being concerned about it. Yeah. And nowadays Todd and I are looking at people like,
yeah, they go deep.
Yeah, people are like, I'm getting electrolysis today. Yeah. Oh, it's like, what the hell?
There's so many people on cleanse diets too. Like there was one point I had two people giving a daily like diary of their cleanse. Nobody needs to know that.
No, nobody does. So Jing, maybe dive a little more into that though. Like the emotion, I don't know, the emotional component.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually in the back of my mind, even though I was starting this blog, I was like, okay, so the end goal, I really actually want to open up a shop of my own. And how can you facilitate that aspect of storytelling and story sharing? It's not like without forcing, people to do it. And my initial, I would say like concept one was actually, I was going back to kind of like my film background. I was like, well, how could we get people on film? How could we get like their audio clips? And I was started to look into video booths. You know, you would see those video booths if you're going to like a convention in Vegas. And they're like, how's your experience? Things like that. I actually wanted to put like a kind of a confessional, very similar to a confessional, inside the coffee shop. And we would have different topics every month of, you know, things that you could share. It could be, you know, something that's very fun and light, like what's your favorite beverage, or, you know, what is your goal this month, to something maybe a little bit deeper or heavier, just, you know, sort of what is the personal battle that you have, you know, undergone lately. And then, you know, I wanted to just put all these stories together and bring them together, kind of like Humans of New York, you know, where they have that compilation of just these beautiful, moving human interest stories. So I wanted to create kind of a, you know, like a movie version of that, right? And then put out something a little bit inspirational for people every 2 weeks, every month, just, you know, things that other people are sharing about their lives, because I really feel, you know, once you're sharing your story and telling people about, you know, your trials and tribulations, it's really when it gives other people the courage and inspiration to, you know, go do the thing that they want to do, whether it's, I don't know, entrepreneurship, or, you know, if you're going through taking care of like a family member or something, or, you know, someone's diagnosed with a long-term illness. It's really, it makes you feel like you're not alone, even if it's a stranger sharing their story about it.
And let's be honest, with the pandemic over the last year in these unprecedented times, as Todd and I like to say, you've got a lot of content. So in a way, you saw the future more than I did in it, because who knew this was going to happen? And now there's a ton of content out there. And again, like, I had COVID, and Todd and I made a conscious, not that we're a couple, but we made the conscious decision together that we're not going to post about it, because his family had it too. I had it, you know, my godson had it, his son. So we made a conscious effort. We're not going to post about it. You know, there's a lot going on, but
or your shot,
or the vaccines. We're not going to, there's too many people out there. Like, pretty much all your friends are going to get the shot. So you're not really, you're just drawing attention to yourself. You're not really inspiring or helping. Whereas I feel like with what you're talking about, there's other people out there with content, and it's just a new way to deliver it. And I think it's something that with your business model, we can get more into it another time, of how that happens. But it just seems now more relevant than it did at the time. And I think it's a huge kudos to you for the idea. That's great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. With the Coffee Confessional name.
Yeah.
Here's a coffee confession right from me.
Oh,
ready?
Boy. Here we go. Yeah. We'll test it out.
I've never had coffee in my life. So having said that, what is it about coffee that everybody loves? Why is coffee such, I don't know, it brings people together. People, hey, let's get together for coffee.
I got to get you on Jing's Instagram Live. She does an Instagram Live on
about
coffee.
Why people love coffee?
Well, yeah, and different coffees.
And I'm not saying it in a negative way. I'll go to places and I order hot chocolate. That's my thing.
Whipped cream.
With whipped cream. Extra whip. A grande with extra whip. So what is it? What is it about coffee?
Jing, what is it about the coffee?
Well, when we say coffee too, I mean, obviously we also mean like all the other beverages like green matcha and rooibos tea and everything. But ultimately, I really want to hear Rebekah's opinion on this too eventually. But I think that like coffee is just something that has carried across so many different cultures, right? Like in Ethiopia and in Greece and Turkey and everything, like there's some sort of ritual that brings people together and they share a cup of coffee, or if they share tea or something. It's kind of this idea of, you know, having a warm beverage and offering that to people, and just like really, you know, whether it's a meal, a coffee, maybe it's wine, it's that idea of a communal gathering. But then, you know, on top of that, I personally find that there's so many health benefits to caffeine and coffee in general, including, you know, makes you mentally sharp. This is not a medical show, so I'm not giving medical advice, but there has been studies that shown it's like prevented, you know, onset of Alzheimer's and a lot of other things.
I never knew that.
But I would just say, like, to people that don't drink coffee, it's fine. It's, I know actually a lot more people now as I'm going into the business that are like, oh, I don't like the taste of it, or, it gives me the jitters, or some people actually feel like, it makes me really fatigued because it, caffeine does actually drain your adrenals. So you just have to be careful about the time that you drink it and how much you're drinking it. And so, yeah, but I mean, that's my 2 cents on like why it's such a popular beverage. And even now I feel like it's actually more of a trend, like sort of like you actually see people like, oh, look at my beautiful iced cold brew with, lavender syrup and rose petals on, it's like this whole like Instagram movement of beautiful drinks and beautiful people.
Right. But that's good for her business when people do that.
I know.
When they tag the business in it.
Todd and I have seen some people that just literally take pictures of their receipts like, this is what I got today.
Well, the reason I don't like coffee, and I found out later in life that my 2 older brothers they've never had coffee either. And it's all the same reason, was because our parents would smoke cigarettes and drink coffee at the kitchen table.
And you equated
it. Disgusted us. And we equate both those with the same thing. I don't dislike the smell. I love the smell of coffee.
Smell is great.
I just don't want to taste it because I just
Jing
think
actually sells candles, coffee candles.
Really?
Yeah. She has candles. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
I do have coffee candles. That's a good way to get around it.
Yep.
Thanks, George, for the plug.
So absolutely, of course. So Jing, you mentioned Rebekah. I think it's time to bring Rebekah into the conversation. Rebekah, nice to have you back.
Hi, thank you. So happy to be back. And I love the subject matter, so even better.
That's great. So Rebekah, just based on what we've been talking about, just some initial thoughts and any questions you might have, just any initial thoughts would be great to start off with.
Yeah. I mean, well, so first of all, Jing, I love coffee. Starbucks was one of my first, I guess you could call it, real jobs. I started as a barista and worked my way up into management. And that's actually where I developed my love for running retail businesses. So that's kind of my connection to coffee. But more than that, everything that you were saying about, what it does for people emotionally and from a community standpoint, for me, at least is very true. And it doesn't have to be coffee. It could be tea. It could be another, beverage, but one of the original visions, and I think they still hold true to this for Starbucks, was that it wanted to become a third place environment, meaning when you're not at home and you're not at work.
Yeah, third space.
Yeah, you want to go to Starbucks. You want to go to your local coffee shop. It should feel comfortable. It should be like a living room. Those conversations, whether they're happy, whether they're sad, whether they're life altering, should be able to happen in those environments. So, that what you're describing with Coffee Confessionals really resonates for me, because I observed that over the course of my 5 years at Starbucks. I observed people having deep conversations, fun conversations, like short, long, et cetera, all kinds of things happening in that environment. So I think from a community building standpoint, especially as we come out of this pandemic, like, who would not want to go and be in an environment like that? I mean, people are craving it. They're craving interaction. I mean, we're Zooming right now and seeing each other on a screen, but oh my goodness, if I could sit across from all of you and just have a cup of coffee in my hands and just chat, that would feel like such a luxury right now.
Yeah, I thank you so much, Rebekah. It's in a weird way, like even with the pandemic, I just feel like so many people, my friends, have been just telling me that it's really been kind of a very, very a big challenge in terms of like mental health, and feeling depressed and lonely. And I really feel like it's almost like the second pandemic is the actual, people feeling like after being isolated for so long and now allowing to do things. And it's almost like re-socializing everyone. It's okay to talk to a stranger, it's okay to go up and like share your story. I feel like, because sometimes I see people and it's like, do I say hello? Do I pull my mask down? Are we shaking hands? It's so weird. You have to like retrain yourself to be social again.
Exactly. Yeah. Do you do that weird elbow bump thing? But I mean, it's even when you think about in the business world pre-pandemic, networking, you would go, oh, let's go meet for coffee. let's go meet for coffee and talk about that idea that you have, or that, film that you want to make, or whatever it is. So it was just such a part of society that I see it returning, much like many things that we used to do pre-pandemic. I see it returning in such a meaningful way.
And I have a question, and Jing, and then Rebekah, or vice versa. How do you see attracting people back to a space? Like, how do you bring people back into a space? I think, King Kong versus Godzilla maybe brought some people back into the theaters, but let's be honest, theaters are pretty crappy. That wasn't enough to bring me in, and whatever. I'm an old man, but it's like, I just think that there's also the, what brings people back in? Like, well, what is that? Is it just you open a coffee shop and people come, or have you given thought about what's going to bring people in?
So, I don't really have like a great answer for this, but this is some of what I've been kind of noodling in my head. But I think like you really have to meet people where they're at. So not everybody is comfortable, obviously, stepping inside the store. And I've actually seen a lot of stores where they're just going to continue their model right now of you ordering outside. There's like a table outside. They'll take the order on their POS system, go back, make it, and then bring it outside for you. So I think it's, if you have the luxury to have a little bit of an outdoor area for people to sit and still congregate, so they feel, if they don't want to come in. But, I think it is also about bringing people inside again, but like really, really from other shop owners that I've talked to, like really emphasizing with signs, like, we've cleaned after every, and we're COVID, we don't let employees, without checking their temperatures in and things like that. So just like really highlighting how closely and carefully you're following the protocols and all of this. And I think just like the signage itself will make people a little bit comfortable. And again, I think it's just really like a re-education into, how to be social again, whether it's like telling people through your newsletters or, other forms of, other forms of outreach. But I don't think it's like right away, people are just going to be like swarming through the doors of retail again. But that's just my opinion. I think it's going to have to kind of trickle in a little bit.
Right. Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. Stage 1 will be very much focused around how is your space compliant? How are you protecting your customers? How are you protecting your employees? But beyond that, I actually think, and this is where your ability to storytell, Jing, is going to be so critical, is reminding people what they loved about coming out to the coffee shop. Whatever you do in your Instagram lives or in, whatever kind of marketing, even grassroots marketing that you do. I think that will be a differentiator. That can be a really strong differentiator, because you're right. Like, to kind of use the big giant coffee cup mermaid example, Starbucks has not reopened their seating in a lot of areas, right? In certain states they have, but in a lot of states they have not. And where they have, it's very, very limited. And it frankly does not feel very welcoming, not because it's their fault, because they can't be welcoming because they can't have a lot of people in there, right? So I think once you establish your environment and you set those rules and parameters, you make it very clear to your customer base, you can also kind of tell this story around why people should be meeting for coffee again and why they actually want you, like trigger something in their brain that reminds them how enjoyable it was, and like how that kind of dopamine starts to get going. So I think that's like stage 2. And then I think to take it a step further, there's this like stage 3 that I get really excited about with like food and bev and consumables. That's like the gamification of, the habit. Like you can start kind of a game to form the habit. Like a lot of coffee shops have rewards. You can do some kind of rewards, but you can even do something that's like unique to you. Like, if you come in, I don't know, if you come in 5 times in a week, maybe you get some sort of like confessional, like perk, newsletter type thing, or you get access to, I don't know what it is, if it's like content for you because you are a filmmaker, if you can kind of tie it back into your other passions and skills. I think gamification of, in particular, highly consumable like food and bev and CPG is something that's like really low hanging fruit.
Oh, I love that. So during the pandemic, when we were still looking for a storefront, I was like, okay, what am I going to do? Like, I can't just, wait for wait for leases and inventory to come up. So I ended up launching the Coffee Confessionals e-commerce store. So we have like mugs and all of those goodies that I actually want to be able to provide. If you join, the Coffee Confessionals community fan club or whatever, you can kind of get your own mug and get percentages off. So I love the ideas that you were, what you were sharing of Rebekah. And it's funny because initially in the beginning, I wanted there to be, like, I know a lot of coffee shops used to do, you can buy a mug and you can be like one of those founding members and you have a mug and, we could put your mug in the store or you can bring your mug in for refills and you can get a discount on the refills. But then I was like, I guess I'll have to throw that that idea out since it's not really, that COVID safe anymore. So that's not going to be, I was like, oh, I really love that mug idea.
But you could, okay, so people love free swag. I mean, they will go, and free, by free, I mean, you make it so that someone buys X amount or spends X amount, and then they get this quote unquote free mug, which is not free because they already paid for it because they bought so much product from you. But the psyche doesn't work that way, right? So like you could do something that's like become a, mug holder and we'll ship it to you or we'll give it to you on your next visit or whatever it is, So you could actually kind of do that, right? Personal cups are not, at least most of the coffee shops right now are not accepting them. But maybe in the future.
Yeah, maybe one day, but I kind of like that. I mean, it was also more sustainable. So, there's other ways to do it.
Yeah. I have a question for both of you too. Like how, with everything that's happened, is location as valuable as it once was? Is it all about the high traffic areas, or because now we know that high traffic can be equated with a contagion? It's like, is it about the destination now, or is it still about location? You got to be where the traffic is. I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
I'll let Rebekah start with this one.
All right. So I do have strong opinions about this. I still think the old adage of go where your customers are is always what you should use as your North Star if you're opening a store.
Yep.
Go where your customers are. But the customers are migrating. So during the pandemic, they are leaving big cities. George, like you said, they're even, like I live in New York. I live in Astoria, which is kind of, I guess you could call it a suburb of New York. But I don't go into the city often because I don't want to be in crowds, whereas before I went in every day, right? So, I think find where your customers are living and playing, because now they work from home. So it used to be live, work, and play. Now it's where do you live and play? And you can look for areas that will really add value to the customer. So for example, maybe there's like a Whole Foods and a small, like a small kind of lifestyle center where, they're going to need to go there frequently, and you plop your coffee shop right there, or by a yoga studio, or by a, just like something where your customer base, and you would know this better than me at this point, like your demographic is most likely to go to yoga or most likely to go shop for wine. Put yourself next to a wine store. Look for those areas where your customer is going to go with reasonable frequency, and then put your coffee shop there. And you kind of form this little community hub when you do that.
I love that. Yeah, kind of finding, it's like you're not the coffee shop that's in the middle of nowhere, right? Like sort of finding that community sort of retail hub that already exists.
Yep, exactly.
Going off of that, I have a question, Rebekah, but what is your thoughts on like trends about in not so much restaurant and cafe, but in, general retail, and how that's going to play out in the next couple of years? Because I think, it's not just people going back to restaurants and coffee shops, but it's also shopping and things like that. And I think, both businesses have will play off of each other as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So similar to kind of the go where your customers are, we're seeing large retailers and brands move away from the flagship model. Now, to be clear, I do not think that large format flagships will die. However, I do think that they will become, you will see them less, because what's happening is like even the luxury players of the world, like Gucci and a few others, are closing their large I'm talking 40,000 square foot flags, and they're moving into these smaller format areas that are more in the kind of, not necessarily like neighborhood, totally hidden neighborhood, but I would say like community hub type location. So as retail goes that way, you know, so will food and bev, so will fitness, like all of those things will follow. And to be really clear, I live in New York. I love New York. I'm not leaving. New York will come back. If you saw Soho this past weekend, it was bananas. Holiday weekend, beautiful, like 65 degrees, sunny.
Oh, I love that.
Slammed, you know, like, of course, people are being safe and wearing masks and stuff still. I think those behaviors are here to stay for a while, but people are out. So, you know, that was very encouraging. So I don't think that cities are dying or by any stretch of the imagination. But I do think that the newer brands and probably the brands that share a common customer with you will be a little bit more careful about and be a little bit more deliberate. Actually, I think deliberate's the right word, about where they put their locations, and they're not going to do it on Fifth Avenue right away anymore.
Right. Because I mean, and real estate is expensive on Fifth Avenue, you know?
Yes. Even though it's come down 30+%, it's still up there.
Yeah, in a way, Jing, it sounds like, and Rebekah's been in the business before, it sounds like it could be an ideal time for you to sign that first lease and get something started, especially with commercial real estate rates the way they are, and based on Rebekah's very sound advice of you know, it's you know, community hubs where stores are downsizing and trying to blend in more with the community, get to know their customers better. It sounds like it could be a time for, you know, I mean, that's what coffee shops are supposed to be, right? So
I actually heard a term that the other day someone was saying, I thought it was so interesting and funny, but they called it revenge commerce and revenge travel. Like coming back with a revenge, because people have been, you know, shuttered for so long. They're like, okay, you know, when I can, I'm just going to buy everything. I'm going to go into stores. I'm going to travel. I'm going to go around the world. Like everything that you couldn't do. It's like telling a kid like they couldn't do everything for a year. And now it's like coming back with a revenge.
Yeah, exactly. I think also in the media, it's been likened to the Roaring 20s because right after the Spanish influenza of 1918, the pandemic where everybody was shut inside and, you know, horrible things were happening, the 1920s were immediately followed. And, you know, in a way, the pandemic kind of ushered in that era.
That's a great point.
I agree with that.
So that's going to come back around again. Likely it'll look different, of course, for us than it did for them. But, you know, I think, yes, people will come out in abundance.
Yeah. We're selling out shows at the Comedy Club right now.
Yeah.
This whole coming weekend, 6 shows sold out. Everybody, not everybody, but I mean, a lot of people, they want to get out and do something.
They're just chomping at the bits.
Yeah. They are.
And what's interesting, and again, Todd and I have been a bit critical of it, as I'm sure you have too. It's like there are a lot of people that just did whatever they did anyway.
Go to Florida.
Right.
I wasn't talking about that. But,
okay. I just like
I'll let Todd and his second wife hash that out together.
My online girlfriend.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
It's not legal or binding.
That's right. Online girlfriend.
We can walk away at any time.
That's right. Anyway, but that's really interesting. So again, when I think about, future casting a little bit, it's just an opportune time, I think, but it's also an opportune time to come back. And Rebekah, you and I have talked about this a little bit, and maybe you can chime in on this with Jing. But Jing, Rebekah and I have talked about how you also have to come back with a different kind of mission, like in a way. And I don't love the word mandate, but in a way, consumers have given us as retailers a mandate. They have new habits, right? They shop more online. They want to get out more. They want to have, quote unquote, an experience. The product has to be really good. They don't have to settle for just this or just that or poor service. It's like, I think the days of just waiting in these long lines for a subpar thing are kind of gone. People want to use their time more wisely, because the one thing that COVID brought up for a lot of people, and unfortunately some people had to experience, loss, is that, you have only, you have quality time remaining. How do you want to spend that time? Who do you want to spend it with? And where do you want to do it? where's going to be the best place to do it. So, you know, we've been given that mandate, and it's no pressure, but businesses can't just say we're going to open our doors and, oh yeah, everybody comes back. It's like, yeah, people will come back maybe in the beginning, but you've got to have something there. So Rebekah and Jing, comment on that, and I'm going to bring something up with Todd. We had an experience recently that I want to talk about.
And then we'll take a call.
Yeah, then we'll take a call. All right. Go ahead. You guys go ahead.
Oh, I didn't know there were callers on the line.
There's no callers.
Jing, do you want to take that one first?
Sure. So I guess in terms of like people, actually, I don't know. Let me think about it. Rebekah, you take that first. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think kind of George and I have worked in a couple of different industries together, you know, technology and apparel and home goods and, you know, these types of things. I think for food and bev, there are some differences, but I guess a good starting point for you, Jing, might be to just get out there and first and foremost, talk to people about what they want to see from your coffee shop. Like, what did you like about your favorite coffee shop in the before times, right? Like, let's have a conversation about the before times. Take your brain there. What did you love? What didn't you like? Like, what was it about it that you didn't really like, that you didn't enjoy? Did you go every day? What made you want to go every day? Like, you know, you find out why, like what drove that consumer behavior, and then do it better, you know?
Yeah. I love that, surveying people beforehand.
Exactly. And if you have your location picked, you can actually like sit outside and, you know, do what is it, Lucy and Charlie Brown with like a little table and like a tip jar and be like, talk to me for 5 cents or whatever, you know, it is. Yeah. With a mask on, of course. No, yeah, exactly. Talk to me and here's this coffee and sample the product and, you know, whatever. I think once you open, one of my favorite things and potentially one of the most underutilized advantages of having a physical retail presence is that your customers are right in front of your face. So they can give you direct and immediate feedback, and you can take it and make deliberate changes. You know, so whereas people have been shopping online, you know, there's this whole talk about retail is dying and we've fast forwarded 10 years on e-commerce. But like, honestly, very few brands are giving customers the ability to really talk to them. And so I think once people get back into a physical environment, they'll be like, oh my gosh, a person that I can talk to. So figure out how to build that community feedback loop into your operations, whether it's like you have monthly tastings for the community and they come in and they literally drive your product development cycle, you know, or you have like some kind of a design competition where you're like, if you could interior decorate my coffee shop.
The latte art throwdowns are very
latte art throwdown.
There you go.
I used to have cappuccino weight competition. Who could get the perfect weight on their cappuccino? I always won, by the way. You know, like you can do stuff like who has the best foam? Like, you know, you can do kind of like stuff like that. But I think people want to be a part of something. They want to be listened to, first of all, and then they want to be a part of something that's like really offering something to the community, you know, whether it's a give back component
and offering a community too for them.
Yes, exactly. So that's my take on in food and bev specifically, you know, kind of what I would do there.
Okay. Thank you, Rebekah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I have finally, like, my mind is clear. Now I have my answer. I think, George, you were talking about sort of the trends, like what we've seen coming out of COVID. And I think one definitely, which Starbucks already accelerated at, is, you know, convenience. I think nowadays people just want things to be even more convenient, you know, like everything delivered. And this can't, you know, it can't be. It has to be the kind of drink that I want, and I want it fast, and I want it now. And so that's one thing I think I'll definitely have to work on, is making sure that, you know, people can, you know, they'll come into stores, but they still want a very easy delivery option. And, you know, now the days of like Instacart and having people delivering your groceries and everything like that. But again, I also think that there's shifts in how people work. Actually, you know, if you're doing a 9-to-5 job that allows you to work remotely, I think that, you know, certain companies are going to be closing down more offices and giving that flexibility to their workforce to be able to work from home, to work from I don't know, to work from outside, to be somewhere. So I think there's a lot of fluidity in where people can go and work from, and which is great actually for, workspaces and coffee shops and, that third place that you mentioned, Rebekah.
Exactly. That's that third space,
I don't
right?
want to be home all the time by myself. Yeah.
Yeah. That's that third space. And that's where I think whether it's a coffee shop or some type of food venue or entertainment venue, it's where you can go, you have good Wi-Fi, you can still do a meeting, you can meet people in person and still have your coffee and some type of food. I just see it playing a bigger role going forward. And that's why I do think it's an opportune time. But again, you've got to have, and Jing's not going to share all her secrets today because, she's got some great secrets that we've built into the business. No, I think there's some good stuff for the business that we've built in that stands out. But I don't think we have to talk about that all. I know we don't have to talk about that all here today. One thing I did want to mention, I'd love your opinions on this too. It's Rebekah, you were talking about the flagships and how there's, how some flagships scale down. Todd and I actually had a recent experience where Todd actually said, "Hey, have you been to the new and Dick's Clothing and Sporting Goods?" And as Todd likes to say, do not Google.
Don't Google Dick's. Google Dick's Sporting Goods.
Sporting Goods. Because if you Google
you'll
just
get
Dick's,
a surprise.
like when I did to look for a location.
Well, you were probably happy, but most people would not like that.
Yeah.
Noted.
Sorry, Jing.
Yeah.
She's
I know.
disgusted.
Yeah, you are offending your first guest.
I know.
No.
Sorry.
But anyway, Todd had mentioned it to me, and they had taken over an old Sears, and they got rid of the second floor.
Sears, remember Sears?
Yeah. Sears for queers.
R.I.P.
Yeah. And so it's floor to ceiling now. I was going to say floor to
ceiling dicks. You were.
It's floor to ceiling sporting goods, and it's they've
two
got
ladies here.
They've got a golf. They've got a
golf simulator,
golf simulator,
climbing wall,
batting cages. But then you introduced me to the
outdoor area with the AstroTurf.
Yes,
where you can go and play soccer and lacrosse and football.
And then mention what happened while we were out there, Rebekah. This plays into Rebekah's.
Oh, we talking to that woman?
Yes.
Yeah.
Maggie.
Megan.
Double G.
Yeah. Yep. Double G in her name.
Yes.
And she came up and asked us if we wanted to play. I'm not even joking. She goes, "You guys want to play?" And we're like, "Oh no, we're just watching two creepy 50-somethings over here watching people play." Yeah. And so we talked. What would we talk to her about? I can't remember.
She came over. She did ask the question just to break the ice. "Oh, do you guys want to get out and play?" We're like laughing. And then we just started asking questions about the outdoor space. Like, what is this used for? And she goes, "Well, it's usually used just for, right now, as you can see, it's the younger set. Families, they want to kick balls." We were laughing because there was a dog off its leash.
Yeah, just walking around.
Yeah. People weren't paying attention. But she did talk about the programming that they're going to be doing there. And this is in a mall, which has always been, I don't know, to me, it's always been, it's a mall. It's an upstate mall, whatever.
Yeah.
But they've got this outdoor space now where they can hold competitions. They're going to do movie nights there. During the summers, the kids can come and play, and it just adds another element to the retail experience. So even though, Rebekah, it's a flagship with that spin. And that's what I mean. If they just opened a big Dick's Clothing and Sporting Goods, it's like, great, more of this. But in there, it's like, oh, you got the climbing wall. The outdoor space, though, is what really makes it. It's kind of like what Apple would do with its theaters. Like when Apple opened its Berlin store and they had that one floor that was just all an old theater, and they lovingly restored it. Like that was it. So now you got this outdoor space, and it's I don't know. It's definitely an attraction. I mean, it was pretty busy.
It was and it's nonstop. I went with Toby and Casey recently.
Yeah. And if Megan Double G is listening, I'll tell you.
She isn't.
Yeah, she isn't.
No.
But I'd hire her in a heartbit. I mean, the way she was leading that whole outdoor thing, she's the program director. The way she saw, here's two guys. She's no matter what she was thinking, she approached us, engaged us, made the connection, did a great job of promoting what the store is all about. Why we did it. You
guys sound very approachable. I would do the same.
We were very approachable.
We're a handsome couple.
Yeah, we were a handsome couple. We were just looking around.
And it's called Dick's House of Sport now. It's not called Dick's Sporting Goods.
Oh, really?
The smaller ones are called Sporting Goods. Oh. This is House of Sport.
House of Sport. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I stand corrected.
Sure.
But anyway, just any initial thoughts or reactions to that? I don't know. I saw that and I was like, okay, it's not the future, but it's a future.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, okay. So this is really the purpose of a flagship in my mind. I mean, you also have like the giant Nike in Soho that has a basketball court and a little like soccer area. And really there are a couple of things there. Like one, you no longer as a retailer, in particular apparel, right? Or apparel and sporting goods, which is what Dick's is, you no longer have to keep every single thing that your company, your brand sells out on the sales floor or even in the building, because e-commerce allows you to now introduce an item to a customer and then ship it directly to them, which in the way back times, pre-internet, you couldn't do that. So you have these racks and racks and racks, and people would have to walk down them. You had to have every single size and every single color and every single thing because there was no other way for people to get things. So now you can actually dedicate less space to your products, and you can dedicate more space to showcasing the utility of your products in people's lives. So like for Dick's, you could try on shoes, go out on that AstroTurf, run around on the AstroTurf and feel how the shoes feel in the actual environment where they'll be used. So, this is the point of a flagship. Like if you're going to open up a 40,000+ square foot door, it needs to have that utility of like, here's how the product actually enhances your life or enhances your performance or is additive to you in some way. So that to me is like the perfect example of what a flagship should be, and not just a giant temple of, endless Columbia shirts or whatever the brands are.
Yeah.
So,
and Jing and I talked about this before as an idea, a concept. It's like, if you have the right coffee concept, can it scale into businesses like that? So, for example, they've got a health area. Remember, we talked about protein powders and vitamins and supplements. But they just, to your point, Rebekah, they just sit on a bunch of shelves. It's like, make it more like a shop where you can sit down, experiment, and try that type of thing. And it's like, Jing, your concept in there would make sense, because as much as these flagships are trying to change, Todd and I noticed too, they still have the same old cash wraps. It's like, oh, can't you go mobile? Like, come on, man. Like, and, get, stanchions are out and all that stuff. And that's stuff that drives me nuts. It's like, are you kidding? It's like, this is back in the 1980s. Like, let's go a little more mobile. And to your point, how do you create these micro experiences in these macro spaces and make it a little bit smaller? And Jing, I think that could be another opportunity for you as you develop out this concept. I know we talked about it with offices, but as we all know, that's gone the way of the dodo, as they say, because, COVID hit. And so offices aren't the same. However, I do think there's another opportunity, and Rebekah has spoken to this before. There's a thirst for content with some of these big box retailers. There's just, they're really thirsty right now.
I mean, even hearing you talk about that, the word that comes to my mind is like partnerships, and maybe something that's, a little bit flexible. And I would love to ask Rebekah for her input on this, but I was thinking like maybe there's a partnership where you can have another retailer come in and set up something that's, just maybe for the weekend or for the week or something like that. And, you're driving business both ways, right? It's sort of like this experience with, sporting goods or anything like that, or, a different beverage or a different, one of my friends actually just launched her cheesecake line, and I'm obsessed with it. And it's like maybe a pop-up bakery or something like that, So yeah. That's kind of what I was playing around with.
Right. Well, I think there is a lot of opportunity. And, when I was working now, like kind of in startup world, one of the main problems is customers don't know who you are because you're too new. And so we would talk about like, who can we partner with where we can both amplify the signal? Like, where's the complementary? There's a crossover customer, like customers are buying cheesecake, fancy cheesecake, customers buying fancy coffee, probably a pretty decent crossover there. Like where can we find the synergies where it's advantageous to both parties? You blast it out to both mailing lists, you post it on both social accounts, you kind of gather the community around it. Definitely opportunities there. I think there's also, like George said, there are much larger retailers and even some brands looking for content. And so if you are a content creator, that is kind of an invaluable ability to be able to provide them with that content. Like I think about, I mean, they are a media company in their own right, but someone like Food 52, right? Mm-hmm. They have a small line of kitchenwares, but they mostly sell other people's, but they do, cooking on Instagram, and they do, they have their blog and they have their newsletter and they have, those kinds of things, but they're kind of at the leading forefront of, foodies. Like they've kind of become the go-to for foodies. And, is there potentially an opportunity with maybe not them or, with someone like them that's kind of out there at the forefront, pushing this forward? Companies like Caraway, Maiden, like people that make like kitchenware dishes, like those kinds of things. You have to serve coffee in something. I would think about those types of brands as well for partnerships.
Yeah. And look at the brands that, I look at brands that do the coffee in there, and you could say like, Target, okay, they have Starbucks, but it's just that same, it's just a recognition thing. You're not getting a different experience. If anything, you're diluting the experience, in my opinion. I get it from a distribution standpoint, but you're not about that. It's less about the distribution, more about experience. And I do feel, just as we kind of tie things up here, that it all comes back to, I think the hyper growth that we were all experiencing before, growth at any cost, all these things, like we have the opportunities now to grow smart. And that could be at 5 locations a year or 10 locations a year. And Jing, you're hopefully, with fingers crossed, we'll have you back and we'll get updates on this. But as you open up one location, maybe that one becomes 2, 3, or 4, and you might just decide that 10 locations is all you want. You might want to stay in one geography. You might just do the rest of your business online and just, do the beans and other products that you have there. You might just do an online marketplace. I mean, who knows where it will go to? But this whole growth at any cost, like what we're going through with these new things, these SPACs and new ways to go public and all this. To me, it's another housing crisis of 2008 coming our way if we're not careful. So we got to be
back.
Well, no, because Rebekah mentioned the Roaring 20s, and we all know what happened right after the Roaring 20s. So we've got to be the Great Depression. Oh, we got to be really careful.
Yep.
Got to be really careful. I hate being on these roller coasters because you just know that.
But what came after the Great Depression? World War II.
Well,
you want to just run through history?
No, not really. But, let's keep going. Anyway, ladies, it's been great having you on. I think we're off to a great start.
Yeah, this was fun.
Yeah, and we're definitely absolutely going to do this again. So just to remind everybody, we've been talking with Jing Lin of Coffee Confessionals, a startup based out of Los Angeles that is looking to open its first location. You can find her at Jinksta on Instagram, and we'll put this all on our sites when we promote the show. And
too.
At Coffee Confessionals as well. So at Jinksta and at Coffee Confessionals. At Coffee Confessionals also does a live Instagram live. So make sure when you sign up for them, you can tune in when they go live.
Are we doing it again with the same people?
Yeah, we actually will probably bring in a new person as well. We'll probably bring in another startup, and then Jing can start it.
We'll just keep rotating people out.
Yeah, maybe
it's fun.
Yeah, I like that. Could be interesting. So
it's great.
And I think it could become a separate concept from.
When will we have
George.
them back and we can talk pop culture with them? Just humanize these people, not just talk business.
I agree. I think we could do that too.
Yeah, let's do that.
And then. We've also been talking with Rebekah Kondrat of Kondrat Retail, and also the newly formed Retail Plus. And Rebekah's been on our show before, and we'll be happy to promote and give you guys all the links that you need to look up these fabulous women that are changing things for the better. So, guys, thank you, guys and gals.
Thanks
for
so
being
much.
here,
George.
Rebekah, I was just scribbling notes the entire time. About,
Jing, we're gonna stay in touch. We're gonna keep talking.
Look, we're friend makers too.
Well, that's what Curiously George is all about. You're curious
we're
about
friend
people.
makers.
Yeah, you're curious about people, and you make friends, and it works really well.
Friend makers. It was a cool concept. I like the idea. And I remember when you brought it up, I was like, how are we going to pull this off? You pulled it off.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
Good job.
I think, we'll talk. We'll have a post-mortem. We'll talk about it. But I
you
think
did well.
Well, you also helped me because remember, I was thinking about doing it bigger. And you're like, look.
Oh, yeah. Too many voices.
Too many voices.
Right.
Yeah. It's spoiled.
I mean, you could have a third and I can just tap out and,
Why do you always do that? No, I need you here.
No, but you got the.
Oh, here we go. Bring out the.
What? No. I'm saying you could have more guests and talk business.
Yeah, or I could tap out and maybe you could
If
talk
it was
pop
comics,
culture.
and talk pop culture, I'll do that all day long.
I know. I think we need to do that as well. So that's what the show's
The business
about.
world is far behind me.
Well,
but I know it.
Well, you know it, and you've got it. Hey, Comedy at the Carlson's a hell of a business, and it's going to be.
I wanted to ask her. I mean, I didn't have to ask Jing, but remember when people just used to sit around and drink Sanka and Brim and have friends over? Yeah, people don't do that anymore, do they?
Fill it to the rim with Brim.
You remember Sanka?
That's for people that needed to be regular.
Well, that's coffee in general, I think.
Yeah.
No, but that stuff, my goodness.
Brim and Sanka.
No, I like
coffee.
Fill it to the rim with Brim, and then that scary woman from Folgers, Mrs. Olson or whatever.
Mrs. Olson.
She was like from Friday the 13th. She was like an extra.
There's also chock full of nuts. Remember all the fun names they had at coffees?
Yeah, chock full of nuts. Yeah, that was good too.
Yeah,
that was the name of a drag queen once. Yeah,
chock full of nuts. Are you serious?
Yeah.
No, it's a good. No, you're not. It's a good one.
It's a good one. Yeah.
All right, but now you took it right in the toilet.
I know.
All right, let's say goodbye, George.
All right, goodbye, George.